On the morning of September 20th, 1988, a 19-year-old woman got on a bicycle in Belen, New Mexico, and rode down a road she had ridden 100 times before. She never came back. What happened next would become one of the most haunting missing person cases in American history. A case built on a single, unbearable photograph, a decades-long silence, and a family that refused to stop asking questions. This is the story of Tara Calico and the road that swallowed her whole. Belen sits about 35 miles south of Albuquerque, in Valencia County, New Mexico. In the late 1980s, it was the kind of place where everybody more or less knew everybody. A railroad town, quiet, close-knit, the kind of community where a 19-year-old riding her bike alone down a state highway wasn't considered dangerous. It was just Tuesday. Tara Lee Calico was born on February 28th, 1969, right there in New Mexico. She graduated from Belen High School in 1987 and went on to the University of New Mexico, where by the fall of 1988, she was a sophomore. People who knew her described someone full of energy, bright, playful kind. She was an avid cyclist. Almost every single morning, rain or shine, she rode the same 34-mile loop down New Mexico State Road 47, a 2-hour ride that had become part of the rhythm of her life. Sometimes her mother, Patty Dole, rode with her. But Patty had stopped joining Tara on those rides sometime before that September. She'd begun to feel that a motorist was following her, watching her on that same stretch of road. She suggested Tara carry mace. Tara brushed it off. She'd ridden that road 1,000 times. Nothing had ever happened. It's a detail that in hindsight is almost impossible to sit with. A mother's instinct, sensing something wrong on that road, months before her daughter vanished on it. On the morning of September 20th, Tara left her home on Brugg Street at around 9:30 a.m. Her own bike was damaged, so she borrowed her mother's, a neon pink Huffy mountain bike with yellow control cables and sidewalls, unmistakable if you saw it. She was wearing a white t-shirt that read, First National Bank of Belen, white shorts with green stripes, white ankle socks, and a pair of white and turquoise Avia tennis shoes. She had on a gold butterfly ring with a small diamond, a gold amethyst ring, and half-inch gold hoop earrings. She had her Walkman with her, headphones on, ready for 2 hours of music and pavement. Before she left, she told her mother something that, in the years since, has taken on an almost unbearable weight. If she wasn't home by noon, come and get her. She had plans. She was supposed to play tennis with her boyfriend at 12:30. It wasn't a warning. It was routine, the kind of thing anyone says before heading out the door. But it would become the last instruction Tara Calico ever gave her mother. At approximately 11:45 that morning, a witness driving along Highway 47 in Valencia County saw a young woman on a neon pink bicycle. It was Tara. It's the last confirmed sighting of her that exists in any record from that day to this one. The same witness reported something else, a pickup truck driving slowly, following close behind her. Investigators later worked with witnesses to build a description. The driver was believed to be a white or light-skinned man, somewhere in his late 30s or 40s, with red or brown hair. To this day, the vehicle in that description has never been found. The driver has never come forward. Tara Calico disappeared roughly 150 yards from the Rio Communities golf course, just a couple of miles from her own home. Close enough that, on an ordinary day, she'd have been back within the hour. Noon came. Tara didn't come home. Patty Dole did exactly what her daughter had asked. She went looking for her along the usual route. She found nothing, no bike, no sign of her daughter, nothing along the roadside to explain where she'd gone. She called the police. Within hours, local law enforcement, the FBI, friends, and family were fanning out across the mesa off Highway 47, searching the brush, the arroyos, the open desert on either side of the road. They found almost nothing. A scattering of items, consistent with what she'd been carrying, pieces from her Walkman, found along the roadside. But no bike. No Tara. The bicycle, that unmistakable neon pink Huffy, has never been recovered. Not in 1988. Not in the 30-plus years since. For a small town like Belen, the disappearance was almost impossible to process. And for at least one young resident, it stirred something even darker, a memory of a name most people in the county already knew. Years before Tara vanished, another young woman named Deborah Lansdell had disappeared from the same area, under her own set of unanswered circumstances. Lansdell was never found. For residents who remembered her, Tara's disappearance reopened a wound that had never really closed. The unsettling question of what, exactly, was happening to young women in this stretch of New Mexico. It's important to say plainly, no connection between the two cases has ever been proven. There is no confirmed link. But for a community this size, the coincidence alone was enough to feel like an omen. Weeks passed, then months. The initial search effort, the kind of all-hands mobilization that follows any disappearance, slowly wound down, the way it always does, not because anyone stopped caring, but because there was nothing left to search. No leads, no sightings, no bike, no evidence beyond a slow-moving pickup truck that no one could identify. By the start of 1989, the case of Tara Calico had gone quiet. Not closed, never closed, but quiet in the particular way unsolved cases go quiet. Investigators kept working it. Her family kept waiting. And New Mexico moved on, the way places do. Then, in the summer of 1989, nearly 1,000 miles away, in a small town on the Florida Panhandle, someone found a photograph in a convenience store parking lot. It would change everything about how this case was understood, and it would never be fully explained. On June 15, 1989, a Polaroid photo was discovered in the parking lot of a convenience store, the Junior Food Store, in Port St. Joe, Florida. It showed a young woman and a boy, both gagged, both appearing to be bound, in what looked like the back of a van. Investigators noted the photo appeared to have been recently taken. Analysis of the film supported that timeline, but no one knew who the two people in it were. The photo was eventually broadcast on the television program, A Current Affair, in July of 1989. And almost immediately, something extraordinary happened. Friends of Patty Dole, who'd seen the broadcast, contacted her. They thought the young woman in the photo looked like Tara. At the same time, in a separate and almost unbelievable coincidence, the family of a missing boy named Michael Henley saw the same broadcast and recognized him as the boy in the photograph. Henley had vanished earlier that same year, in April of 1988, while on a camping trip with his father and a family friend in the Zuni Mountains of New Mexico. Two children, if it really was them, who had disappeared in the same state, within months of each other, potentially appearing together in the same photograph, found 1,000 miles away in Florida. Patty Dole met with investigators. She examined the Polaroid closely. She said, in no uncertain terms, that she was convinced it was her daughter. A forensic artist compared the woman in the photograph to images of Tara Calico and concluded there was an 85% likelihood it was her. But the FBI's own analysis was more cautious. Despite the family's conviction and the forensic artist's estimate, the Bureau was ultimately unable to conclusively determine whether the young woman and boy in that photograph were Tara Calico and Michael Henley at all. It remains, to this day, one of the most disputed and unresolved images in the history of American missing person cases. Not confirmed, not disproven, simply unresolved. The case exploded into the national spotlight. Unsolved Mysteries profiled it. So did America's Most Wanted, The Oprah Winfrey Show, and 48 Hours. For a family desperate for any answer, the sudden attention was a double-edged gift. Visibility, yes, but also years of theories, armchair detectives, and speculation that would follow the case for decades. And still, after all of it, investigators were left with a single, impossible question. Was that photograph really Tara? Or was it someone else entirely? A coincidence so uncanny it reshaped an investigation for over 30 years? No one has ever definitively answered that question. Over the following decades, investigators pursued a range of leads, none of which ever closed the case. Witnesses near Port St. Joe reported a white cargo van, windowless, with a sliding side door, parked at the convenience store around the time the Polaroid was found. That van was never located. Back in New Mexico, witnesses described a dirty white or light gray 1954 Ford pickup truck, fitted with a homemade white camper shell, seen in the area around the time Tara disappeared. That truck, too, was never found. Over the years, other theories emerged, including speculation, advanced by some former investigators, that a group of local young men may have been involved in an altercation with Tara that turned violent. This theory has never been proven. No one has ever been charged in connection with it, and it remains firmly in the category of speculation, not established fact. It's worth pausing here on something easy to lose in a case this tangled. None of these theories are confirmed. Not the truck, not the van, not the altercation theory, not even fully the photograph. 35 years on, what's remarkable about the Tara Calico case isn't how much is known. It's how much still isn't. For Tara's family, that uncertainty has been its own kind of sentence. Decades spent unable to grieve in the way grief usually allows, because grief requires an ending. In this case, never gave them one. The 1990s came and went. Then the 2000s. The case remained open, technically, the way cold cases do, a file that never closes but rarely moves. Investigators changed. Sheriffs changed. Tara's parents grew older. The internet changed how the case lived in public memory. Where it had once been a regional mystery, kept alive by television specials, it became something else entirely. A subject of true crime podcasts, forums, amateur investigators poring over old case files, all searching for the detail everyone else had missed. Tara's parents did not live to see the case resolved, but her siblings, 2 sisters, 2 brothers, continued to carry it forward year after year, refusing to let their sister become a name only spoken about in the past tense. And then, in 2023, almost 35 years after Tara Calico rode her mother's bicycle down Highway 47, something changed. In June of 2023, Valencia County Sheriff Denise Vigil and other officials gathered at the courthouse in Los Lunas, New Mexico, to announce a development few people believed they would ever hear. Authorities said they now had enough evidence to turn the case over to the district attorney's office for possible prosecution. The suspects have not been publicly named. Court records in the case remain sealed. But Sheriff Vigil said investigators had never given up, that despite limited resources, the sheriff's office had continued following up on leads and tips for over 3 decades, enlisting help from federal investigators along the way. Vigil noted that Tara's parents did not live to see this moment, but that her 2 sisters and 2 brothers deserved, at long last, to see justice. Investigators later described the case as having made, in their words, substantial progress, with the stated goal of arresting those responsible. As of the most recent public reporting, no arrests have been publicly confirmed, and the investigation continues. It's easy, in a story built on theories, sketches, and unresolved photographs, to lose the person at the center of it. Those who knew Tara Calico describe her, in the words widely reported by those closest to her, as someone with a bright light around her, fun, serious, smart, playful, and kind. A young woman who showed kindness to people even when she didn't have to. She was 19, a college sophomore, a daughter, a sister, a girlfriend, a friend. She rode her bike because she loved it, the same 34 miles, almost every morning, rain or shine. On September 20th, 1988, that ride ended somewhere along Highway 47, and it never really has, not for the people who loved her. 35 years later, the road is still there. Highway 47 still runs past the golf course, past the mesa, past the spot where a witness once watched a pickup truck slow down behind a girl on a neon pink bike. Tara Calico has never been found. The photograph from Port St. Joe has never been definitively explained. The truck has never been located. And for over 3 decades, a family has lived inside a question mark, waiting for the day it finally closes. In 2023, for the first time in a generation, that day started to feel possible. Tara Lee Calico has been missing since September 20th, 1988. Her case remains open.